us take a little virtual field trip now. Let's head to Costa Rica. I'm so excited for this event. Through Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, we get to spend a lot of time over the course of a school year visiting the Toucan Rescue Ranch in Costa Rica. They do absolutely incredible work there, protecting native Costa Rican wildlife. But this is a treat for me. This is the first time I'm going to get to host Leslie. So Leslie Howle is the founder and director of the Toucan Rescue Ranch. So she spent time working in the US, but then returned to the jungles in Peru to study wild macaws. And this led her back to Costa Rica and her dream of establishing a bird refugee center. If we fast forward to today, the Toucan Rescue Ranch provides sanctuary for native wildlife while giving treatment, rehabilitation, and when possible, release of those animals to their natural environment. So toucans, sloths, owls, weasels, porcupines, cats, kinkajous, parrots, and more have all found refuge at the Toucan Rescue Ranch. I am going to bring Leslie in live with us right now. Hi, Leslie. How are you?
Hi. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good, good. Leslie, it's such a pleasure to have you joining us. So great to see you. And I see that you're not alone today.
I'm not alone. I have a little new patient that came into the Toucan Rescue Ranch a couple days ago. Her name is Martha, and she's a little blondie two-toed sloth baby.
Absolutely beautiful. How? What was the situation around her coming to the rescue ranch?
So she was found without a mom, just on the ground, and they're not sure what happened to the mom. And so people picked her up and took her to another rescue center, and they specialize in other different types of animals. And so they called us, and we actually went over there and were able to pick her up the other day. And so it's really nice when we get to work with other rescue centers together, all for the benefit, of the animals of Costa Rica. She's about a month old. Typically, the mothers the orphan babies that come in are because of mothers getting electrocuted with severe burns, even, dying, or because they're run over by a car, or just attacked by dogs or something like that. So it's usually something to do with human encroachment.
All right. Well, Leslie, I think it would be absolutely amazing if we could get to know you a little bit better. If you can tell us a little bit of your story and what led you to founding the Toucan Rescue Ranch.
Right. So I'm going to do that at the same time that I'm giving her a little bit of food because she's smacking her lips at me. And this has to be done very delicately. So I'm just going to be paying attention to her and talking. But my family moved us all here to Costa Rica when I was 7 years old. And my father was one of the first developers all the way out on the Pacific coast in a little town called Nosara, which is now very well known for surfing and meditation paradise of Costa Rica. But anyway, at that time when I was there was, hardly anything around except for a small village and a lot of howler monkeys and all kinds of wildlife. And so I grew up with like all of my vacation time there at the beach, and then on my dad's project, and then in town for school. And since they were putting in, roads and wells and all of that kind of stuff, they did, people would find wildlife all the time, and they would bring it to us because they knew that we, loved it, and we would take care of it. And so we were raising baby monkeys as kids, and lots of baby birds, baby macaws, and things like that, and then just releasing them back into the wild there in Nosara, in Costa Rica. And so I grew up with a lot of the different wild animals of Costa Rica. And when I was 15, my dad was done with the project, and he decided to move everybody to England, and that was a huge a huge change, as you can imagine. So I went to high school in London, and then I went back to the States for college, and I majored in occupational therapy. And I worked as a therapist in hospitals in Reno, Nevada for many, many years. And then I got to a big birthday and said, oh, I want to go back to Costa Rica to visit. And when I came back to visit, the first night I was wandering down this little road, to go into town to get something to eat. And I was passing by, these little like village homes, and all I kept thinking was, oh, I feel like I'm home. I want to move back. I got to get a bird. It was like all this kind of stuff just really overwhelmed me. And so after that trip, like you said in your introduction, I decided to focus more on birds. And I took a trip to Peru to study macaws in the wild in Peru, in Tambopata, Peru. And after the third time that I was there, the head of that program said, Leslie, there's an elderly couple in Costa Rica that's working with the macaws, and they're doing a great job, and they need help. And I was just like, me, done. So it was pretty traumatic, but I went back to the States, quit my job, sold my house, started getting the permits for all of the rescue birds that I had accumulated by then in the States. And I ended up moving here a year later with 10 birds and 3 dogs to go work for the Macaw Project. So after I was at the Macaw Project for like a year and a half, and I became part of their board of directors, I was slowly realizing that the only animals that were being rescued in Costa Rica at that time, which was in 2003 and 4, were macaws. There were 3 different groups, all focusing on macaws, and they all had really good programs. And the macaws were being released into the wild with soft releases. Those macaws, some of them were already having finding nests or using artificial nests that were in the wild and having babies. And so I thought, well, they really don't need me because they've got it made. The macaws just have it made. And so I thought, well, I was seeing a lot of other birds coming into the rescue center that were basically not given the amount of attention as the macaws were. And so I thought, well, these are the birds that actually need my help. And on the top of the list were the toucans. And so that's how we decided to open the Toucan Rescue Ranch. I talked to the wildlife people. I was fortunate at that time because I spoke Spanish still to be in charge of all of their paperwork with the wildlife department. So I knew everybody in the wildlife department at that time. And I talked to them and I said, hey, is anybody in Costa Rica working with toucans? And they're like, oh, Leslie, nobody cares about toucans. I can say, unfortunately, it hasn't changed that much in all these years. But I said, well, I do. And that's how we opened the Toucan Rescue Ranch, to focus on like the non-macaws and the birds that actually needed help, which were toucans and all of the pet parrots in Costa Rica that were getting confiscated because of the new laws that changed that said nobody's allowed to have a wild animal as a pet anymore. And owls, there were no raptor centers at all in Costa Rica. And, when you think of Costa Rica, you don't really think about owls because you think of North America, but Costa Rica actually has 16 different kinds of owls. And so we do have a large raptor population, and not just owls, all the falcons and hawks and everything else. So that's what we focus on, bird-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it started with birds. I know it started with the toucans, but there was a day when a very different kind of creature was brought to your door. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where
exactly. So we had, at that point, we had bought a property an hour from here as our release site, like to release birds. And it was it's in Sarapiquí. It's one of the greatest birding areas of Costa Rica. And it's full of toucans and parrots and macaws and everything. And so we thought, oh, this property is perfect. But it also happened to be full of 2-toed sloths and 3-toed sloths. And so we were taking trips over there and then off to the Caribbean coast to explore a little bit. And we fell totally in love with the sloths that we were, finding up in the trees. And so we talked to the wildlife department and we said, hey, we might be interested in sloths as well, but only in like an adult sloth that I could rehab. I'm an occupational therapist by training. So it was like, I could do the rehab part. So I was like, okay, adult sloth that I can rehab and then take it to our release site and let it go. And they were very excited that I was interested in sloths because the only people working with sloths were on the Caribbean coast. And from the Central Valley, that's like a 6-hour drive. And sometimes they close the highway because it goes straight through the rainforest and there's mudslides, and it can be closed for days at a time. So if a sloth needed to get to the rescue center in the Caribbean, they really couldn't get there. And so about a month later, they called me and they said, sloth coming in from the highway. And so I get this, huge kennel thinking I'm going to get an adult sloth hit by a car. And they bring in a little ball of fluff, a little bit bigger than this one, and in this cardboard box. And I look in, and there's these two little, beautiful brown eyes looking up at me. And the guy's arm is all scratched up, and he goes, yep, that was her. And I was like, wow. And then the only thing that everybody would tell me is, don't get attached because she's going to die. And I'd be like, well, not on my ship. But it's very complicated. And so as you can see with this apparatus that we have here, we have a miracle nipple, we have the 1 ml syringe, so that we're doing very, very slow feedings with the sloths. And that was the problem with the sloth babies, is that they tend to aspirate and it goes down the wrong way, and then they can develop pneumonia. And so that's one of the things that we had to be really careful of. Because I had worked with baby birds that do the same thing, I was already a bit of ahead of the game. And so with luck, we were able to work with the sloths and have successes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now we specialize in sloths, toucans and owls. Although we have a bunch of other animals, we're carrying between the two sites, because we have a clinic at the other side and volunteers now at the release site as well. We're caring for around 300 to 350 animals, like anytime during the year. And we have a wonderful program that we did together with a group called the Sloth Institute for releasing our sloths and tracking them with radio collars. And so that was one of the big hurdles that we had to get through too, is, okay, we don't just want to accumulate, with all these sloths that people were saying at the time that they couldn't be released, but actually figure out a way to release them, to train them to release, and to be successful once they're released. And so I can tell you a little bit more about that if you're interested, or anything else.
I think it would be great if you told us a little bit about the program. I think one thing students love when they connect with the ranch is hearing about how the sloths go through different grade levels, right up to university. So yeah, can you please tell us a little bit about that program? How, a young sloth like our friend there would make their way through the program.
Right. So she's in nursery right now. And then, so the nursery school is basically on my porch and in my house, because we have to care for them 24 hours a day. And then, Andrea's showing you. And then can you actually move a little bit?
Yeah.
And take him over to see Serena, because she's like learning how to eat. So Serena is one of our older still babies, and as you can see, she's eating leaves right now. And one of the things that's really important that we do is that we hang the food for them, so that when they wake up, like in their buckets and blankets, they have to think about, oh, I have to actually move and find food. And that's one of the really critical learning points that we want these sloths to gain, an experience that they have to gain. So once they've been here for,
until they're
I want to say at least probably a year, practically 8 months, 9 months to a year, depending on their weights. Then we transfer them over to, this is like first grade too, because she would be like a first grader. So we would transfer them over there to like the middle school, and in middle school, then they're able to, that's so funny, they're able to stay up all night. But they have people with them all night on large structures in a little guest house that we have, so that the sloths are learning to become more nocturnal. And again, we're still feeding them and supplementing with milk, but they're switching diets to be a more natural diet of all different kinds of leaves. And in the case of the two-toed sloth, it would be leaves, different fruits, different vegetables, seed pods, and then a little bit of protein that they need from in the wild. They would have protein from maybe like a bird's egg or like eating bugs and bark or something like that. And then the high school is once we bring them out, we have some trees here in the front of the yard that are their favorite food for foraging. And so we have almond trees, and we have a ficus tree. The ficus is the favorite of the three-toed sloth, and the almonds are the favorite of the two-toed sloth. And then they can spend all day here in the trees foraging, and then they'll come in at night just for protection. And once they are at like 1.5 to 2 years old and weigh like 1.5 kilos to 2 kilos, then we send them out to the release site. And then they go through the whole process at the university there where it's different stages again. And the last stage is they're in a really, really large enclosure, probably like a 2-story house with doors that are like on pulleys and slide back and forth into the forest. And so then we'll set up branches and ropes that go in and out of the cage so that they can eventually go out into the forest. At that point, we put a radio collar on them and track them. And we also put a microchip with them. And so then we can track them and see how they're doing. And so far, we've now done the program for several years now. We have sloths that have been out in the wild and have come back to visit. And they've even come back to visit with babies in tow. And so we know it's working really, really well. And the one that did come back with the baby is one of our handicapped sloths that was missing an arm from being electrocuted. And she just went out there and did so great. And so we know that even if they're handicapped and missing an arm or a leg, they can still climb and they can still survive in the wild.
All right, Leslie, that's amazing. It is so great to hear stories like that where you're able to successfully reintroduce the animals back to the wild, and they're so successful. They're having young, and even like you just said, even in a situation where sometimes people might hesitate to re-release the sloth because of the injury like you spoke of, they're still able to thrive back into the wild. I think it really speaks to the level of care in the program, and the lengths you go to keep the sloths as far away from people and human contact as possible, which obviously is hard when they're really young, but then you kind of gradually bring them through those levels and rewild them.
Right. It's a little bit of tough love, but we do the same thing the moms in the wild do, which is, start leaving them at that age, and then they don't have as much contact with me, and I just kind of go over and peek in the guest house, or peek up, walk by the tree and see how they're doing or something like that. But it's all for their benefit in the long run. We don't want them coming back and looking for us. We want them being successful sloths, reproducing in the wild and living the life that they're supposed to have.
Absolutely, no question. And I hear some other friends in the background, the birds.
When we first started, we were waiting to start. It was so noisy. We were just kind of like, oh, I wonder if we can do this. But we have a lot of macaws, and we have Amazon parrot, and the one that's screaming right now is a crazy cockatoo. Not native to Costa Rica, but she hears my voice and just kind of goes off. And then I just wanted to say that the same program basically that we've done with the sloths, we do with parrots, and we've also done it with owls, and we've also done it with toucans. And so it's the sloths are kind of like the ones that take the most time and are just so much more involved because of the injuries. But with the rehab of the parrots and with the owls and the toucans, we've done the same different steps. It just doesn't take as long.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got to feel good every single time there's a reintroduction of the animal, and it's back out to that native habitat. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about where the Toucan Rescue Ranch gets its support from. How do you get the support to be able to do what you're doing?
So we don't receive any funding from the government. No rescue center does in Costa Rica, which makes it very difficult. And we're open for educational talks. And so before the pandemic, we were having educational talks like tours of our facility every day, several tours a day. And the tours were 70% of our income to be able to support the programs that we're doing. And then when the pandemic came and we basically, shut down as a whole country, that was very, very difficult for us. And fortunately, the virtual tours and the virtual talks and everything that we started doing with learning by the seat of your pants and all the other different groups, those are the ones that have really saved us during the pandemic. And then at the same time, our marketing department is really creative, and you can adopt one of the animals, or you can figuratively adopt them to help support the medical program and to support them. And we do campaigns all year long based on different needs that we have, like if we have to build a new enclosure for an animal, or if we need a new piece of medical equipment or something like that. We have a full veterinary staff here, and we have a clinic that's very, very small, but very well equipped and very well used. Sometimes it's like double-decker kennels in the clinic. We have so many animals in the clinic, so we do need to expand there. But it's been with a lot of private donations and a few grants that we've applied for, but mostly private donations that keep us going, and the tours. And now we're open again, and so we are getting tourism back to Costa Rica, and that's helping a lot as well. And we also, for those of you that would like to see the nursery on a daily basis, we have teamed up with explore.org, and we have one of their cameras on our porch, basically 12 hours every day, watching the baby sloths and keeping track of them. And that's kind of fun to have the live cam on the porch, and people, learning about the babies and meeting the babies and things like that.
Oh, that's so cool. I had no idea that you started doing this. It's such a great way for people to kind of visit virtually when they're not maybe joining a talk or something, to see what's going on in the nursery. That's awesome.
Right. We're going to have a toucan camera real soon. We're doing the wiring to get that in place, so that'll be fun.
Awesome. Well, we got to meet last night. We got to meet Anna Maria, and who works as the veterinarian supervisor. And she's doing incredible work. We always love hosting her during the various festivals. So, yeah, I mean, lots of work done by that team, and it's amazing the recoveries that they're able to facilitate.
It is amazing. I mean, it's kind of, I can tell you the story of using tilapia skin. Tilapia skin is now famous for being used with burns, but it started by me just reading about the California wildfires a couple of years ago. And I was looking online and reading about it, and they were saying that they were using tilapia skin on the bear feet to heal the burns. And I was like, wow, Costa Rica has a lot of tilapia. We need to figure this one out. And then sure enough, one of the doctors that we worked with that was giving us stem cells, no, did I say that right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, collagen and stem cells for regenerating burnt tissue and everything. She says, oh, we're now working with tilapia skin, and we can, prepare it and everything for you. And so it was so wonderful to have that option. And so we're using a lot of really, innovative things here, and it's working, and it's bringing the healing process faster for the animals, and they can get out of the clinic sooner, which means getting back to the wild sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you mentioned your marketing team and the great ideas they come up with. Sloth Ironman Games. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sloth Ironman Games?
Sloth Ironman Games are, there's kind of like Olympics, but it's, we focus every year on different sloths, our juvenile sloths that are in the program at that time. And part of the program for all of the animals here at the Toucan Rescue Ranch is that we have a really large enrichment program. And so, every week the volunteers are making, beautiful, like, Christmas tree ornaments of fruits and nuts and everything for like the parrots, or puzzles for the monkeys to figure out how to get, peanuts or something, or
cardboard boxes for the cats.
Cardboard boxes filled with hay and smelly meat for the cats or something like that. But anyway, part of the Sloth Ironman Games is basically doing the basic things that we do with them for enrichment, but making it into like a game and a timed game. And so they have
The poop off challenge.
yeah, the poop off challenge, which is basically when we take all the babies to go outside to poop. Sloths only poop like once a week, so it's a big deal around here when we get a weight and an actual weight, because if we weigh them when they haven't peed and pooped, then the weight's off because they can lose. Isn't it like a third of their body weight? A third of their body weight with the pee and poo. So we'll have the poop off challenge, the hibiscus eating challenge because they love to eat flowers, and we'll have
The 1 meter dash.
the 1 meter dash, which is basically them, climbing skills, and then the strong sloth challenge, which is like a pull up. And I want to show you little Reggae. Can you or bring the bucket up?
Yeah, maybe.
We're going to show you Reggae. He's our three-toed sloth and one of our sloth babies. And all morning long, he was doing like the strong sloth challenge, pulling himself up on a new structure just with his arms. And we've been seeing him pull and pull and pull with his arms, but he hasn't been using his legs that much. And today he used his legs.
If you go on explore.org, you will definitely get to see that.
Everybody, we've all been taking pictures of him all day long using his legs. It was a big
milestone.
A big milestone, and then he quickly just dropped in the basket and fell sound asleep. So he's been sleeping for like the past 4 hours, very soundly. So anyway, look that way, so that they can see you. So even though they're sloths, two-toed sloths and three-toed sloths are like totally different animals, but same family.
Amazing, absolutely beautiful. I'm not surprised that he's tired. First time is a pretty big deal, so I'm not surprised that he's tired out after that today.
Yes, he was really tired. But it's almost feeding time again, so it was okay to wake him up because I got to feed him pretty soon.
Perfect. Well, Leslie, first of all, I want to share some links. Here's the link if people want to follow along on Twitter and Instagram to the Toucan Rescue Ranch, where they can get updates and hear about different promotions and things that are going on. And then I want to share the link to the website, toucanrescueranch.org. A great spot to visit to find out more about the work and, of course, to support the work. Because, like you said, this work is supported by donors, by people coming to visit. And another option, too, is volunteering, right? If you're in the area for, is it 18 to 20 days?
20.
So we have volunteers and we have internships. The internships are either 3 months or 6 months. And then the volunteers usually stay for like a month or 2.
All right. Amazing. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for the incredible work you're doing in Costa Rica. It was so great to see. I'm going to make you full screen again. We want to look at our three-toed friend again one more time. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thanks for sharing it with us today. Andrea, I know you're rocking the camera today. Thank you so much for helping out. And we
always welcome.
We have probably, through Exploring by Seat of Your Pants, brought thousands of students to check out the Toucan Rescue Ranch, and we can't wait to bring even more to visit virtually.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your weekend.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.